Hi, my name is Matt, and I guess the first real memory I have from childhood was the absence of my father. My parents got divorced when I was very, very young, and as a result of that, he rejected me as a son, and I didn't have any contact with him until much later in life. And I think that kind of set the tone, for everything else growing up. I was very shy and introverted in school, didn't have a lot of friends, very isolated. I was raised in church, in Assemblies of God Church, where we lived. At 15, I got the call into ministry. I had been doing small sermons in different places and competing in fine arts festivals. And it was also around 15 that I started cutting myself. Started small first, surface cuts on the arm, and eventually it would get worse. I would start using X-Acto blades and scissors, whatever I could get my hands on. 10 years later, I have over 100 scars all over my body. Also around that time, I really started feeling withdrawn from the church. It's hard to say, I didn't really feel accepted by people that I was told were supposed to be my family, God's family. And if anything, I felt ostracized and condemned. And depression set in. Around 16, I was hospitalized for suicide. I would be in there for about 3 months my first time. February in 1999, I decided I didn't want to serve God anymore. I didn't care about the call in my life. What I wanted was revenge and power over people. And so I left the church, I left my relationship with God, and I went into the occult, Satanism, witchcraft. That would be my life for the next 3 years. Eventually I settled in with a group of people that were pagans, witches, Wicca, Satanism, all different types of things, vampirism, all different forms of the occult, which allowed me to practice freely. This newfound desire I had, I guess you could say. Eventually I was, given the gift of divination. I was able to walk around people I had never met and know things about their past. It usually always was bad stuff. People that were sexually abused, being sexually abused, cheating on their wives or husbands. So for the first time in my life, I went from this scrawny weakling that had no friends to this person of power and intrigue. The hole that was inside of me just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I started running with people that were petty criminals. They sold drugs, robbed gas stations, robbed houses, and I was like, this is great. I had no empathy for people. Eventually, though, you just can't do it anymore. The come-downs for the drugs were starting to take an effect on my body. Many nights I'd be laying on the bathroom floor thinking I was dying. So I don't want to do this anymore. This isn't the life that I wanted. So I settled down with a girl, and I think this is going to be the life. This is going to be where I can get out of everything, and I can have a normal life, finally. After 2.5 years, this relationship comes to a very horrible ending. I practically watched her, with some other guy, and I fell apart. This whole deck of cards, this house that I had constructed, fell apart right then and there. And I realized at that point I didn't want to live anymore. I had decided I was going to take my life and take a lot of other people with me. But it was here, at this moment, that for some reason something had happened in my heart. It wasn't hard anymore, it was soft. Finally everything just crumbled, and that was where God could speak. And I remember I had heard that a friend of mine had started going to church. It stayed with me as I was going to work. It just constantly would ring in my head that he's a Christian now, he goes to church, he's not drinking, he's not smoking anymore, he's not doing any of the things that we all used to do. And I longed for that. And it was May 13th, 2010. I was driving home from doing laundry. It was just burned in my mind. And I just heard this voice in me say, go to your church, go back. Okay, so I pull in. And I'm just smoking a cigarette, one after the other, and all these different thoughts, what if somebody recognizes me? They'll remember all the stuff that I did while I was here. this, that, and the other thing. I mean, the enemy really, I think, bombarded me that day to keep me from quintessentially what was about to happen. And so I go in after about 20 minutes, and a pastor comes out, and we just walk around, and I just start to confess everything I've ever done. And it took about an hour to do. And at the end of it, he just looked at me and he said, "Do you want to repent? Do you want to ask God's forgiveness for your sin and accept the new life that Jesus has for you?" And I was like, yes, that's what I want. So I prayed, and I just asked God to forgive me, that I commit my life to Him. I didn't notice it then, but I notice it now. That was the last time I ever touched a cigarette. That pack of cigarettes that I had been smoking in the car was tossed out that day, and I never had another one. All the times I tried to stop the coke and the pills and everything else, never touched it again. God, like that, took it all away from me. And I was completely and 100% delivered of every single physical addiction that I had ever had. The pastor that discipled me, he was an alumni from CFNI, and when I saw the grace that was at work in him and the way he was able to love me, and the people in the church I was going to, not a lot of people spoke to me. You know, I'm not the kind of guy that most people would come up to, but he loved me and still does. We still have a great communication to this day. And I was like, I need that. That's what I need. If going to that place is what it will take to really let God move and remove all what's left behind from my choices, then I have to come here. So this is where I am. If Christ can love me and save me, I really think that there's nobody He can't save.